Louis stepped forward, intending to enter first. But before he could say anything, Kira quietly pushed the door open herself. She had little trust in her uncle, worried he might try to threaten or manipulate her into another trap. Remaining highly alert, she cautiously stepped inside. The room was completely dark, with no lights switched on. The moment Kira walked in, she spotted a shadowy figure rushing straight toward her. "Niece, if you don't hand over the money today, you're not leaving here!" Recognizing the threatening voice, Kira narrowed her eyes with a cold smirk. Without hesitation, she lifted her leg and delivered a powerful kick. The figure crashed heavily onto the floor. Hearing the commotion, Louis immediately pushed the door open and rushed inside. "Are you all right?" he asked anxiously. "I'm fine." As soon as she answered, Tom, who had followed behind, pulled out a high-powered flashlight and aimed it toward Kira, lighting up nearly half the room. Still watching carefully for any movement from Finley, Kira glanced toward Louis and noticed his eyes fixed on something behind her. His pupils widened slightly while his jaw tightened. Frowning, she instinctively turned around. Louis quickly stepped forward, as if to shield her from whatever was there. But Kira gently shook her head, avoiding his protection, and looked for herself. The next instant, she froze in shock. Finley was lying flat on his back, eyes wide open while his body twitched faintly. An old steel rod had pierced directly through his chest. Blood had soaked his clothes, creating a horrifying scene. Kira's heart sank. She hurried over to examine him. Just then, an impatient voice echoed from outside. "Dad, I'm here!" A young man in his 20s, bearing a striking resemblance to Finley, rushed into the room. Kira recognized him immediately. It was Connor, Finley's son. He was 1 year younger than both Isla and Kira, and was currently studying at Oceanian University. When Connor had first been admitted to college, Finley had begged Kira for tuition money, but she refused. She knew that any cash she gave him would simply feed his gambling addiction. Growing up with a father like that had made Connor quiet and withdrawn. He rarely interacted with others and maintained an awkward relationship with his own family. Now, anger covered his face. "I borrowed $20,000 from a classmate. That's all I could get. If you keep forcing me, I'll leave the country and never bother with you again." Dade. The moment Connor saw Finley, he froze in disbelief. The bag slipped from his hand, spilling the $20,000 across the floor. He rushed over, trembling as he checked his father's breathing. A second later, he staggered backward and collapsed into a squat. Staring at Kira in horror, he shouted, "Did you kill him?" His shaking hands searched desperately for his phone. Music. Trembling, he dialed 911. "Hello, I'd like to report a murder. My father has been killed." The police arrived without delay. After locating the building's power switch, they turned the electricity back on, flooding the abandoned factory with light. Kira and the others were separated and questioned individually. Connor's eyes were bloodshot, though he wasn't crying. Instead, he almost looked relieved. "My dad texted me, saying I had to bring him $5 million or he'd be killed. I'm just a student. Where could I possibly get that kind of money? I managed to borrow $20,000 from friends, hoping it would buy him some time. I never imagined I'd arrive to find him already dead. That's when I called the police." Tom also gave his statement. "Mr. Horton and I accompanied Miss Olson because she came here to meet someone. Since the building was completely dark, we decided to go with her. Ms. Olson entered first. Moments later, we heard sounds of a struggle. Worried she might be in danger, we rushed in. I turned on my flashlight and saw the victim lying on the floor. One of the officers asked, 'Was he alive or already dead before you entered?' At that question, Tom instinctively glanced at Kira, guilt flashing across his face. The officer warned sternly, "Remember, giving false testimony is a criminal offense." Tom stayed silent. Lewis answered instead. Before we entered, Ms. Olson knocked on the door. A man's voice from inside told her to come in. The officer asked, "Was it the victim's voice?" "I honestly can't be certain," Lewis replied. Finally, the police questioned Kira. "Ms. Olson, whose voice did you hear? Tell us exactly what happened." "It was his voice," Kira answered. Her eyes remained fixed on Finley's body as she continued thinking everything through. "When I walked in, he threatened me and rushed toward me. I reacted instinctively and kicked him away. After that, this is what happened." Before the officer could continue, Connor clenched his fists. "So you're saying it wasn't intentional? Are you claiming it was self-defense?" Calmly, Kira replied, "I don't know." The officer frowned. "What exactly don't you know?" Before she could explain, Lewis stepped in. It was completely dark. Miss Olson only kicked him away. "We still don't know how he actually died." Turning toward Kira, he continued, "Ms. Olson, think carefully. Did you hear anything like a weapon piercing flesh? A knife entering someone's body? Did you hear him scream?" Having replayed every moment repeatedly before the police arrived, Kira answered immediately, "No." Connor stood motionless. "What do you mean?" Kira looked directly at the officers, speaking firmly. "I did not kill him." The policemen exchanged uncertain looks. Most young women would have broken down or vomited after witnessing such a gruesome scene. Yet Kira remained composed, explaining her reasoning with remarkable logic. It impressed even the lead detective. "We've documented the scene and recorded everyone's statements, Ms. Olson. At present, you remain our primary suspect. Please stay here until the forensic examiner completes the inspection. If no further evidence is uncovered, you'll be free to leave." Kira nodded. "All right." While waiting, she and Lewis continued observing the surroundings for possible clues. Dust covered every corner of the abandoned factory. Finley had spent nearly an entire day hiding there, touching countless objects and leaving traces, almost everywhere. Ironically, that made finding useful evidence even more difficult. Just then, one of the technical investigators reported, "We've unlocked his bubble phone." Kira immediately turned toward him. The officer picked up the device and scrolled through the chats and call history. While tapping through the files, he accidentally opened a voice recording. His eyes suddenly lit up. "About an hour ago?" He saved this voice message. As soon as he finished speaking, the recording began to play. Finley's voice echoed from the phone. "Dear niece." About that secret. Kira stared in disbelief. Why had Finley's final recorded message been addressed directly to her?